Once again today, the Bilderberg meeting is happening in Chantilly, Virginia, where many of Europe's top bankers and technocrats are meeting together in secret to try and plan the global economy for the next 12 months. To get a deeper view into this, Infowars.com has met with Max Keiser in London to talk about the Greek bailout, the world financial crisis, and how Bilderberg factors in to these events. Max, thank you very much.
Great, be here.
Coming around. Bilderberg, we've got some big-time European heavyweights there. Dr. Joseph Ackerman, Angela Merkel, Herman Van Rompuy, all meeting to figure out how to plan the economy for the next 12 months.
Yeah, Bilderberg, European vacation. Yeah, Europe's in free fall. It's on fire. The revolution's coming. So, the great thing about Bilderberg is that in the last few years is that what was in the shadows is coming forward. And when you see moves like the Europeans at Bilderberg, it's obvious who's the shadow governments now are running the show, and they've put these technocrats in office that come out of Bilderberg and other groups, whether it's the leader of Italy or Greece. They come out of these shadow governments and shadow meetings. And yeah, Europe's in an interesting point in its history. The Euro's at an interesting point, and it definitely is heating up.
Occupy Bilderberg, there was a call for it recently. So again, it's being really forced out of the shadows right now, Bilderberg.
Yeah, well, I think, Infowars is a big part of that. I mean, they have really been harping on this for a number of years, and they have succeeded in making this more of a mainstream media story.
Now, if Greece is to leave the Eurozone or leave the single currency, the rumor is that the Bilderbergers are panicking because this might encourage or open a ray of light to other really struggling economies that are also kind of in the noose, like Spain, Portugal, Ireland, for instance. But look at Iceland. Iceland has made what, by all accounts, looks like a good recovery, only a few years after being really underwater in debt and some of these securitized debt obligations that you talked about.
I don't think Greece is going to leave the euro. Germany doesn't want it to leave the euro because for the reason I just... And Greece signed off on this memorandum with the Troika, as it's called, effectively turning their sovereignty over to these outside forces. And it's up to Germany, and Germany doesn't want Greece to leave. It's not up to the Greek people. The Greek have lost their sovereignty, and so and I don't see that happening because it's just not up to them. It's not their choice. They don't have any voice in the matter anymore. And Germany wants the euro. They want Greece in the euro. They want to keep the euro relatively cheap because if it were just Greece, if it was just the Deutsche Mark, it would trade more like the Swiss franc. It would be 20 to 30% higher, and their whole export model would crumble. So they're playing both sides of the fence. They're playing one off the other. They're doing a brilliant job. Their economy is growing. Their employment is growing. Their social welfare programs are in surplus. So they're making out like bandits. And, going back to even the reunification of East and West Germany, that was something that was forbidden after World War II, but because of the euro, it was allowed to come together again under the rubric of the euro. And now the reunification of Germany, East and West, you have a superpower there in Europe, which is interesting because the China story is fading, the US story is fading, the UK story is fading, German story is growing, which is very nice for Germany. Well, its position in this matrix is that it's a small economy that you could easily disrupt and do a leveraged buyout. All the assets of Greece are being taken over by outsiders, and these are good income producing assets: shipping, tourism, lottery business.
Gold mine was privatized and sold off.
Yeah, their gold holdings, 111 tons of gold. So these things are all been pledged to the Troika through the memorandum. They're good income producing assets, but they're going to be owned by foreigners. So, and they can do this because it's a relatively small country. And the model, it's a Wall Street leveraged buyout model. The IMF, itself is bankrupt. The IMF has no money. When the IMF is lending money to countries, they themselves have to borrow it on the wholesale market first and then re-lend it out to a country like Greece. And the IMF was about to go bankrupt. It just had no purpose or being. So this European story has given them a new reason to go out there, borrow trillions, and then lend it out to these other countries for the purpose of encumbering them to the point where they have to sell assets to pay the debt that they didn't incur to begin with. And those assets go back to the IMF's creditors. So the IMF then spins those back to the creditors. They get the fees. They just want the fees. Christine Lagarde is just give me the fees, give me my salary. And so they make out like bandits. So Greece it's strategic in the sense that, it's like a private equity group, Mitt Romney, when he was at Bain Capital, they would look for companies that are relatively small, that have good income, that you can do a hostile raid, or you can take over and split apart, break it apart, spin out the assets. And that
James Goldsmith model.
Yeah, Jimmy Goldsmith during the corporate raider days of the 80s. Carl Icahn, Jimmy Goldsmith, Ivan Boesky, Mike Milken, Ron Perlman. All these guys had developed this leverage buyout technique, refined it, then it went corporate, and now it's gone sovereign. But it's the same idea. You pledge the assets of a country, in this case Greece, to secure loans to take over the country, sell the assets, keep the difference, make a lot of money. The people lose their sovereignty. They lose their jobs, just like a huge leverage buyout. Most people lose their jobs.
Yeah.
People are unemployed. It's in Greece the same thing. The unemployment is skyrocketing. So it's the model, the asset stripping model now on the sovereign basis. Bilderberg is a great way for people to get together and talk about this behind the scenes and just say, well, I don't think it's an accident that it went from Greece, Ireland, Greece, Portugal, then Spain, because they're expanding their war chests. Because now they have more credit, more cash to go after Spain. It's not like Spain, it's not economics where Spain suddenly, their economy was flashing danger signals, and they started going into trouble, and then we saw a smaller economy go after that based on regional economies, based on trends that were unique to these countries. No, the countries were picked off in the order in which they were vulnerable.
Predatory.
So it's totally predatory. So you have Greece, Ireland, Portugal obviously are on the periphery. They were picked off. The war chests are increased. Now they go after a $1 trillion, $2 trillion economy like Spain. And from there, where do they go from there? I mean, are they going to go and hit France, possibly? I mean, the UK is an interesting choice for this type of activity.
So what's going on here? I mean, the IMF from the 60s, 70s, 80s, they preyed on Africa to no end, and they preyed on South America, and they preyed on Southeast Asia. So what's happened there? Have they eaten all they can eat, the banking cartel, and now they're feeding on First World or Europe or United States, Canada? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, there's a lot to say there. The South America, Central America, they took the eye off the ball as they went into Iraq, Afghanistan. So the democracies that are now emerging in that region came pari passu with a U.S. obsession with Iraq, Afghanistan. In Africa, they've got another huge competitor suddenly in the region with China, who's in there with a different model, not to just bomb folks and take their assets. They're spending lots of money and they're developing. So now China is really there, and the U.S. can't really tangle with China because China is the U.S.'s biggest creditor. They've got over $1 trillion U.S. dollar-based securities as part of a $3 trillion reserve portfolio. So that leaves, the choices are for Europe, and then in the U.S. itself. These predators are destroying the U.S. itself by destroying the economy within the U.S. So I think this is what people in the U.S. haven't even woken up to this yet, that they're now the victims of this predatory banking model. And we see this in different sectors of the economy, different regions of the economy. And the Occupy Wall Street is in response to this. But as I've said, their strategies are lightweight. When we're talking about a heavyweight foe, they go into a gunfight with a knife type of thing.
Yeah. So, so you're Germany, okay, and I'm Greece, and I've a real problem getting an abstract of this. You want to get a shot down on this? And so if you're the European Central Bank and I'm Greece, so now I'm waiting for my bailout, basically. So how's this going to work? You give me a few oranges, I'm going to give them back to you, or in interest payments, compound interest payments? How exactly is it? It's a bit of a shell game, isn't it?
Right, the money doesn't go to Greece. It goes to it cycles right back to the ECB and the creditors. So something like 10 cents on every euro ends up actually in Greece.
So here's 100 billion.
Yeah.
So I'm Greece. I'm saying thank you very much for my bailout and my haircut. And then this is just going to cycle right back.
Yeah, it goes back. The idea, to understand the accounting model here, think of a Hollywood movie where the producers get paid based on the size of the budget, not on how the film does in the box office. Mm-hmm. So there's always a trend to make the budgets bigger, 100 million, 200 million, $250 million movie.
Stars in and
get the biggest stars, pay the most for the stars, because that's how you get paid. You get paid on the size of the budget. Once the film is made and is playing out in the theaters, if it's a huge bomb, it doesn't matter because you already made your money.
everyone got paid.
They already got paid. And now it's on a global basis, and when they lose, the people are forced to pay austerity, and it's leading toward what we saw in France. You know, the government stole property from the churches. They collateralized the assignat, which is the currency of the day, backed by mortgages on churches, and eventually they blew up the currency, and there was a revolution. But now we're having a global insurrection. When one of these countries is toppled, I mean, we saw it in Egypt, and there's a lot more, and Tunisia, you know, that wave is still very much circling the globe. And in Europe, whether it's Greece or Ireland or someplace, you know, there is this feeling now of really seeking regime change.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that note, I'd like to regime change. I think we need
regime change
in a lot of different institutions, not only banking, financial, but political as well. Thank you very much, Max Keiser.
Do you mind if I take Spain with me?
You can take Spain, and I've got Liechtenstein, Luxembourg. I've got the Benelux.
What? Here's Germany. It's like, it smells bad.
This is austerity. I told you I'd buy you lunch.
Oh.
So there you go.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much.
Thanks, Max.
Okay.
Okay.